While Ocean's 8 is a send-up of the traditional heist film in many ways, the idea of the girl gang in movies isn't anything new.
There's a gang in this class.
While it's true, female-led ensembles haven't been nearly as prevalent in the boys' club of Hollywood, there's still a fascinating history that we can trace through the years. It all revolves around the theme of girls behaving badly, but it's how and why they've behaved badly that's evolved across decades. In the 1960s and 70s, America was in the midst of a sexual revolution, and the traditional gender roles were upended as women challenged the status quo and ingrained beliefs about female autonomy, sexual liberation, and the women's place in the world. The girl gangs in the movies of this era were in direct opposition with the wholesome girl-next-door stereotypes of girls and the Susie homemaker stereotypes of married women. In the 1950s, rebellious girls were portrayed in movies as being an aberration and something that a good, upstanding girl would never aspire to be.
Happy little housewife.
Cut it out.
Movies with girls gone bad were heavy on the moralizing, and the rebellious teen girls of these movies often met a tragic end. But the movies of the 1960s turned that idea on its head. Sure, the biker gangs of women were still roaring their way across the theater screens, but instead of being a cautionary tale, they were instead shown as bold, fearless, and exuding the magnetism of a woman who no longer cares what society thinks of them. Hell yeah! They were a reflection of the newfound freedom that women were achieving, with a strong "I don't need a man" ethos. The family and boyfriend were no longer the most important relationship in these characters' lives. Instead, their gang was their family, and all that mattered. So popular was the Girl Gang Biker movie that 1968 alone saw 3 different movies with this storyline released. The Hellcats, She-Devil on Wheels, and the Miniskirt Mob. Woo! I gotta watch those. And yet, for all the emancipation these characters enjoyed, the female ensemble movies of the 60s and 70s still painted women as something to be feared. Femme fatales who would use their sexuality to manipulate men, or even worse, emasculate them. They may have been movies about women, but they were still movies about women being made by men, after all. And male anxiety about the new female identity was reflected in the films just as much as any feminist themes were being reflected.
I'm about average.
Just look at the trio of go-go dancers in the cult classic Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, who rob and murder men for fun. Or in 1979's The Warriors, whose lone female gang, the Lizzies, carry switchblades and use their feminine wiles and powers of seduction in order to lure the warriors into a trap. The idea of the girl gang moved from the streets to the classroom in the 1980s through the 2000s, with the literal girl gang of previous decades morphing into high school cliques and mean girl groups. The alpha females of these groups were often smart, driven, and commanded loyalty in leadership roles traditionally held by men. The dialogue in these films was elevated, snappy, and witty, and cutting in a way that dialogue of typical male-led movies was not. And it made for some eminently quotable films.
Okay, that was so fetch.
Mean Girls, for example, is still regularly quoted today despite being released in 2004. And even if you don't know that the lines come from 1988's Heathers, you know you've at least heard
Fuck me gently with the chainsaw.
or
What is your damage, Heather?
at some point in your life. Still, for as clever and witty as these movies' Mean Girls were, they upheld some of the worst stereotypes about women. That females are catty, that girls are constantly willing to stab one another in the back, that boys and popularity are all that matter. The alpha girl ringleader may have had the lion's share of the best lines in the movie.
It's not like we kill people.
But they also reinforced damaging tropes. And God help a character if she was a member of a high school golden group and she exhibited any kind of remorse for the nasty behavior.
Boo, you whore.
She was always portrayed as the weak member of the herd, there only to be turned on by the rest. It truly wasn't until the 2010s that the idea of women in constant competition with one another gave way to the idea of women actually working together for a common cause. The movies of the past decade have been sending a clear signal. Anything you can do, we can do better. Or at least just as well. While there is still a deep imbalance in Hollywood, there have been a surge of female-driven movies with women holding down roles traditionally held by men. The most notable of these is the lone female-led action movie, such as the Hunger Games trilogy, Atomic Blonde, and Red Sparrow. But girl gang movies are also having their day in the sun. Thankfully, girl gang movies are now focused on exploring the genuine friendships and support between women, rather than reinforcing the worst catty stereotypes. It's an evolution that has reverberated throughout a number of female-led movies. It's prevalent in comedies. Take Bridesmaids, for example, where there is some of that competition between characters, but the main focus is on the genuine friendships between the women. Last year's Girls Trip did the same thing. Or the Pitch Perfect series, which is fundamentally about how the strength of their bond always gets them through tough times. But it's not just limited to comedies. Even girl gang action movies are finally starting to portray female heroes who actually act like women and not like women acting like men. Most notably, they've allowed female characters' compassion to bubble to the surface and to coexist side by side with their badass skills. Wonder Woman was one of the most successful films in recent memory, which was entirely rooted in Diana's compassion and strength, both of which she learned while growing up in a land of strong, courageous women who build one another up. Even the taciturn Furiosa of Mad Max Fury Road puts her life on the line to free Immortan Joe's wives, who have been enslaved for breeding purposes. The young girls, in turn, do all they can to look out for one another and help Furiosa on their way. As a slick heist film, Ocean's 8 is neither pure action nor slapstick comedy, but still continues this trend of women helping other women in order to thrive in a world run by men. Debbie Ocean might be Danny Ocean's sister, but that doesn't mean she wants Danny on her crew. The gang she trusts is made of women she surrounds herself with, as competent and capable as any men in her life. It's a culmination of all the girl gang movies that have come before. The difference is this time, the women don't succumb to individual stereotypes or lazy interpersonal tropes. They're too busy being a blueprint for the modern movie girl gang.